Hi, everyone.
Hey guys. Hey guys. Take two. So welcome back to our podcast number. We should probably get better at knowing these, but we don't actually know what order we're going to post them up in. So I'm Paul, Allison, and Dave. Last name's omitted to protect the innocent. And Dave is one of our certified instructors here. He's gone through the adult instructor certification program in jiu-jitsu. And he's got two kids who have been part or are still part of the academy here. And I thought it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about the value of a defined leadership style training program for youngsters, although frankly, adults as well. Because I was 19 when I started jiu-jitsu. I was not a kid, and I've said many times, like, I may be by nature the shyest person you have ever actually met. And it wasn't until I learned to love jiu-jitsu so much, I eventually was like, well, I wanted to help other people with this. I had to learn instructor certification. I had to get certified on how to teach, and that changed a lot of my personality type. People think that they're locked to a certain personality for life. You're going to always have predilections, but you can definitely change from being like 98% introverted, which is what I was, to, I thread the line kind of nicely. So, and we'll touch a little bit about sports, again, but adult activity as well, because we have a program for adults. A little different than the way the kids run. Kids is in perpetuity with levels. The adult one is like a one-time 10-month program. But they have a lot of the same benefits to them. What's up?
You get thrown into a shark tank.
You really do. You really do. But how many adults do we know have gone from like painful in a group, and I don't mean teaching, I just mean in a group, to now can command the attention of others.
One right here.
Right here. You were doing it before you came here, but I presume, professional background inquiry, have you professionally been put through leadership style training classes outside of just the general workflow? Because I know they offered that when I worked in the office world. I never partook, but.
So yes.
Okay.
So yes, but not to the same kind of breadth and depth that this program.
Sure.
And gauntlet that this program took us through.
Gauntlet. Yeah.
That was a thing.
Yeah.
It was a thing. But
it is absolutely a break you down to build you up program. It's designed to be that way.
We studied leadership in my MBA.
Sure.
Had it through some sort of executive training in a prior employer. But yeah, we had more time to be able to focus and more breadth at a psychological level, at a behavioral level in this training, and I really benefited. It also crystallized a lot of stuff that was very much throughout, like other little bits that I learned throughout various spots, but they were all little individuals, little spots.
Got it.
Right? And this is like crystallizing it and putting it into a structure that lets you, okay, now I get it. This is how this all sort of sticks together.
Yeah, and I've been at an adult level. I've been to a couple of, mostly online, unfortunately, because it's hard to get to places in person. But like, Jocko Willink has a specific leadership training course, right? This guy named Patrick Bet-David, he has one as well. They put on leadership training, right? Those kind of things exist for adults. There's not a lot of them out there for kids. A lot of school activities, right? A lot of sporting activities. Not a lot of things that are like, we're not going to dig through this, guys, but for those who are curious, like this is our leadership training manual for kids starting at around age 7. And it has, I like to tell people all the time, like, it has nothing to do with how to throw a punch. Yeah, technically somewhere in here is the teach people. But at the end of the day, it's how to teach, how to use the word influence before, right? And for me, there's sportsmanship, which is an important thing, right? You work with the person on the mat. I respect your body, you respect my body. We're going to take care of each other. We're going to learn collaboratively, rising tides, all ships, et cetera, et cetera. And that's great. And you join jiu-jitsu and you do jiu-jitsu and you never take part in the leadership program, I think you're going to get some of that, right? Like youth sports offers a lot of that stuff. It's great. It's super beneficial. And I think where one of the things I love about this program is that next step that doesn't exist in a lot of other places, right? Like I checked out the chess club briefly. I didn't see a lot of leadership training going on there. I did cross country and wrestling in high school, and certainly the sportsmanship was all there. Everybody took care of each other, everybody learned together. There were little nibs and dibs where there were opportunities to kind of excel, but there weren't a lot of language around it. And it's kind of cool, something I said earlier. it's nice to see drips and drabs getting into the school system a little bit. Now we're just in the Metro West of Massachusetts, so I can't speak to nationally. But 10 years ago when I used the word grit, none of the kids knew what I was talking about. Recently the word came up and we used the word grit for a month, and a lot of the kids ages, I don't know, what, 8, 9 and above, something like that, had heard the word and could at least say like determination or stick-to-itiveness. They could put something to it, which was nice. That means the word's being spoken about. So things like that going on with the zeitgeist are pretty cool. So somebody else talk. I've talked too much.
About leadership? Well, I definitely think that the leadership program also gives our students specifically some responsibility too. I've heard from multiple staff members that they love teaching specifically our ninjas classes because it gives them ownership of something, right? It gives them something that they have to plan. It gives them something that they can get excited about every shift, or gives them something that they can go do research at home about and learn about the specific age group. And then, we're teaching them in the leadership class about a specific age group, like 4 to 6 year olds, and how their attention span is different than others and how to keep their attention in. And that those little bits that they're taking ownership from, I think is a huge element of growth in, especially we have high school staff, especially in that high school age range. I think that's super important that they have an ownership of something and they have that determination to, I have to plan a class, and I have to make sure that I'm planning a class also that's fun for the ninjas and that they're not bored, but also I have to make sure that all the leaders that are helping me also have jobs. And I now have to oversee everything, and it kind of gives them a very micro leadership role.
Their own little fiefdom.
Exactly, like their own little tiny circle where, okay, I have to lead a bunch of 6-year-olds or 4-year-olds, and I also have to help a couple of helpers too, and teach them along the way. And I also have to lead by example, right? Like I also have to be a good role model, and I think that specifically, like I have to be my best. I think that is why this program is so important, and so like that's why you see such growth, is because I have to be a good role model. I have to, do everything that I'm supposed to be doing plus some, and I think that adds a level of maturity that you don't see in a lot of other students.
I want to add one quick thing, and then Dave. Just for clarifying for those who are not here locally, Allison's talking about 15-year-olds.
Yes.
At 15, I couldn't speak to my peers, never mind adults, and I damn skippy couldn't lead one 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. Never mind the fact that, the team members that she's talking about right now are leading a group of, I think there are 9 of them or 8 of them yesterday, and the team is handling this effectively. They've grown up in the system, they've been part of the leadership program for a long time, but they're doing it at 15. I could not do that.
Right, with the caveat of they have been in this leadership program since they were in that
7,
little
8,
tiny,
9, yeah.
So they started this when they were 7,
yeah.
Right? And now by the time they're 15, they're able to lead an entire 30-minute class,
right.
Kind of by themselves with each other. Obviously, like there's like 3 or 4 of them kind of collaboratively working. There's usually one that's going to be in charge of, this is what I'm doing.
Somebody's got to be the CEO.
Yeah, somebody's got to be in charge. It's usually like the seniors or the juniors that typically will take kind of charge, and the freshmen or the newer staff will kind of follow suit, but they also then have that role model of, this is what I have to look like next year, right? Or like, this is what I'm aspiring to be. And I think that's powerful. And I think it gives these students something that maybe that they're missing, or some of them are involved in other activities, and I think it crosses over very nicely with a lot of these other activities. And I think that these kids are, I love them, so I might be
well, of course,
biased.
Biases, yeah.
Definitely biased.
I'd like to pick up on something that you laid into that, and that was the determination. Mm-hmm. And the grit and the determination, both, Angela Duckworth's work has been fantastic, and I completely agree that that's huge. I'd like to tease out another little piece of this, and that is the self-determination. The idea, especially in today's social media world, where everyone is working on, so many people are just seeing their personal brand as the only thing that they can do, and this is all surface. Mm-hmm. This is all what I present to the world in terms of through this little screen. The idea that it's not that who they are and what they aspire to be is not determined just by what they put on the screen, but by their efforts and actions. That's huge, and I think that's something that's largely that is underappreciated and underutilized right now. So having the opportunity to get out there and think not exclusively of oneself, but of the other students that they are then responsible for, right? And to learn, not just sort of be thrown into it, or hey, I don't feel like the adult don't feel like teaching. I'm going to let somebody else, get the kids. Because
no, have you ever seen me twitch on the outside? You've seen this many times. I want to be teaching, and to step back and give them the opportunity. This place exists because I love teaching jiu-jitsu. To stand back and I almost said a name. Let one of the other leadership students do the teaching part. I'm always like sitting on my hands so I don't interrupt and have jiu-jitsu Asperger's and throw stuff out there.
It's necessary for the kids to have an opportunity to learn, to grow, to experience some of those stub toes in the process.
Oh yeah.
And to be able, because without a fail, there's not a learn, as you were saying earlier. We need that.
Yep.
We all need that, especially kids, and they need a safe space in which to do that. And this is where those leadership skills are not you're not just born with them. You don't just here, take this pill, you're gonna have it.
Right.
They're developed, and that means flexing that muscle, and that means getting the bruise and then recovering. And this provides an opportunity for that, and that's really important.
That's one of the most common book sections I would go in a bookstore is personal development. 80-something, 90%, I don't know, whatever. Huge part of that is leadership something, right? There's a lot of literature on it. Almost none of it's aimed at kids.
Yeah.
Right? Jocko's got a couple of books that The Way of the Warrior Kid, which I've kind of browsed through. My brother I know is working on with his son, and Will with his daughters gets a little bit older. What?
Just nothing.
Anyway, the idea being that you can start these principles at a young age. Something we adapted actually, 5 or 6 years ago when we redid the program. It used to only be roughly ages 12 and up. And we went and checked out another organization and how they ran their leadership training, and they had much younger kids doing it. And I was like, well, hell, if they're doing it, we can figure this out. Now, their system didn't work for us because the auspices that they used, their type of martial art and jiu-jitsu didn't mesh. So we had to redo how we do things. So we sat down, we did a lot of work on it, and we came up with these programs. And 2 more levels were born of that. Always go to look for outside resources, right? Glean what you can, but be careful not to just copy, right? You got it. We couldn't copy if we wanted to, right? We had to adapt because of what this is. So we created a program for 7-year-olds to be able to be leaders to 5-year-olds. And I joke all the time when I'm outside, you guys can't see it, but there's a wall over here of our leadership team. And when the parents come in, I joke that's my wall of brag. Obviously, we're martial artists, we're very humble about ourselves, but I will talk about that group all day, every day until I run out of oxygen, because watching a 7-year-old be a good influence on a 5-year-old is amazing from the outside perspective, and it's win-win-win all the way around. Because to a 5-year-old, the coolest thing in the world is an 8-year-old. For an 8-year-old, you're putting responsibility on their shoulders. You have to be a good example, and you have to make sure that person has a good experience. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
In kids' lives, it's really rare. The only thing I can really think of is you're the older brother or you're the older sister, go take care of your younger brother, go take care of your younger sister. So you probably have to learn a lot of that stuff by trial by fire, and probably screw it up a lot. Sorry, John. You probably screw a lot of that up as the older brother. Yeah. I definitely did. But it doesn't exist in a lot of other places, and I think that's an opportunity for us to make kids better. I wanted you here because you've had your kids go through it, and I think your kids have benefited by not the jiu-jitsu per se. We can put that aside real quick.
Yep.
The jiu-jitsu is a thing. You got a daughter. I don't know any dads of daughters that don't want their daughter to be a badass. It's just period, right? We'll just package that up and put it over here real quick.
Yep.
the other stuff, right? You used the word life skills earlier, and I was annoyed because you used it before I did, and I was like, it's a good word. Go ahead.
It's true. There was a tremendous breadth. Like, I was surprised by the breadth that you all covered in your training areas.
It's a big book.
So, because if you look at like sports have certain leadership skills where there's the opportunity typically for them to be able to for kids to be able to exhibit, to learn, to develop those.
Yep.
And that's fantastic. There's another area over here where you've got a set of presentation skills, right?
Yep.
And getting over some, when statistically more people would rather like fight a lion than stand up and give a presentation. There's a thing there.
Jerry Seinfeld's got a whole bit about
this.
that. You know the Jerry Seinfeld bit? The number one fear is public speaking.
Yeah.
The number two fear is death. So that means if you're at a funeral, you'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
Nice. Yeah. And so this skill is going to be one of the more important skills that people are going to have at really pivotal moments, right?
Yep.
For that presentation, for that raise, for
Yep.
that executive, like whatever it is, whatever venture, wherever you're going, like this is going to be an important skill to have. And so having an opportunity to develop that, and I'd love for it to be more of a core curriculum in our school systems, but that's not often the case. And so the fact that it's here is really huge. That is one piece. There was another. There's another about another section about on empathy. There's another section on personal responsibility. There are, and each month, in fact, y'all have a
word of the
different
month, yeah.
word of the month, and then a whole set of foci on topics within that, and exercises for expanding that within the kids. It's just awesome. And as a parent, like there's a lot of that stuff that I tried hard to do, but having it, even if nothing else, than having it reinforced. And there were topics that y'all came up with that I didn't. Like bringing in having the kids read the like switch.
Yes.
Was huge.
Yep.
Huge. This fantastic book, by the way.
Yep.
Having the kids learn about the set of techniques that we can employ to engage with, interact, and sort of nudge psychologically, subconsciously others is hugely valuable, whether we're using it directly ourselves or whether we're observing it being used upon us.
Yep.
It's good. It's really valuable to know because you're going to live that life, you know?
There was a meme that went around recently that I railed against pretty loud. Even it brought it into the program here with the leadership students. A meme said, and I think this kind of gets to the larger cultural conversation we have right now. Screw earning respect. People should start off by just having your respect. They shouldn't have to earn it. And I was like, absolutely not. Respect requires trust. I don't imagine you can possibly respect somebody without trusting somebody, and I trust somebody 100% from day zero. I don't believe that's a thing. With regards to conversations here with 12-year-olds, how often do they get to have that kind of chat as a specified time? It doesn't really exist anywhere else. If you're a history teacher, you're teaching history. Maybe some of that stuff comes out there. If you're a math teacher, you're teaching math. Maybe there's an opportunity, little, tiny, whatever, but it's a specified program where that's all we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about specifically that. Real quick, industry-wide, most martial arts schools don't have something like this. They should, so do better. But if you're, I've been to places where like, hey, you're a blue belt, go teach the white belts. Like, I don't know how to teach, that's fine, you know how to do. That's not the same skill. Those are not the same skill sets.
If you don't mind me piggyback on this before we get the common thread too heated, and as we discussed this in a walk a long time ago, the idea regarding respect is that politeness.
Correct.
Everyone deserves at baseline.
Yes.
That start of polite.
Literally what I taught the kid. Yeah.
And but respect is a bit of a difference.
Yes.
So go out there. So don't go out there like being rude and
Nope.
disrespectful,
Yep.
because that's also a whole nother thing. The lack of respect doesn't mean disrespect.
Correct. Yeah, it's a polite neutral is what I called it. You get to
Polite.
start with polite, neutral.
And that's appropriate.
You get to earn my trust, and by that, maybe earn respect, right? And that was just, again, has nothing to do with the larger conversation, but the bigger thing being we have a program where that's a conversation we have,
Yeah.
right? Some of that bleeds into the regular martial art class because our martial art class has a 5-minute mat chat you mentioned earlier, which is some of these higher level conversations, whether it be grit. This month we're teaching boundary setting. You know, we do physical boundary setting, right? No, stop hitting me, right? But there's an opportunity to actually talk about some of those soft skills. I hate the word soft skills, but they're not hitting somebody in the face, so they're a soft skill. Or life skills, right? And I joke all the time, like leadership program will help you negotiate with your boss and order at Starbucks, right? And those are both utilitarian life skills. You know, how do you advocate to somebody when you don't know, when you're not speaking the same language? How do you make that happen? How do you be an influential person just to get what you want?
But even just like the little tip of, and this one was actually way more for me that like I really rooted into was the whole thing that like, if Dave's on the mat for class, he doesn't actually care that I had a bad day. I mean, Dave cares that I have a bad day. Like after class, if you want to vent to Dave, he's like the best person to vent to. But like before class, right? But during class, he came down to have he came down to have a jiu-jitsu lesson. He came down to have an hour of, you know, a awesome lesson that I personally need to push to the side and give the students and give Dave what they came down for, what they basically paid for, right? And to me, that lesson at the age of 9, 10, when they have a lot of emotions, they have a lot of hormones, they have a lot of things that are going on, and we know because we've been there, right? And it's hard for a 10-year-old, it's hard for a 15-year-old to kind of put their school day aside or put their, you know, bad test grade aside or, you know, thinking about, oh my God, I have so much homework, I have midterms, I have this, I have that. Put that aside for 20 minutes, a half hour, and just teach. And a lot of times it becomes that like, you know, fake it till you make it kind of thing where all of a sudden you're faking, and then you're like, all right, I actually forgot all about that, now I feel better.
Yep.
And that lesson for me specifically, I'm one of those people that absolutely wears my emotions on my sleeve. You know exactly what I'm thinking, you know exactly what I'm feeling all the time. And for me, that hour of, I have to be a teacher, I have to put all of that aside, I can't let my emotions kind of lead through the class in a negative way, right? Like I've absolutely had that day where you do the warm-up and you absolutely kill them in the first 20 minutes and they're like, who hurt you today? You know what I mean? and you're like, but that was a killer warm-up.
I just wanted to destroy something beautiful.
Like, what happened to you today?
You said it, I didn't.
So sometimes, but I feel like that's a positive. They've
We'll
come
all
down.
benefit by my venting.
What
is it? The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Right? Or you take one out on your ukis and you really sell the sizzle on that technique and it becomes like, but just that leadership skill of
compartmentalization.
Correct. And that leadership skill of, I'm going to push past, I'm still going to be confident, I'm still going to get this done, even if I've had, the day from hell, and this is what I'm doing right now. It's
interesting because you get a chance, dovetailing off of that, you get the chance to put words to things that you might do as an affect. But one of the things, up to kind of the earlier point, we're putting words to things where you might glean it by accident, right? But it's being discussed as a topic. Structure. And one of the things my instructor talked about was, and I remember he talked about it at a structural program, right? My instructor talked about, there's this thing we call the 20 points of teaching. Allison mentioned one of them, which is never bring your personal life onto the mat, okay? And my instructor reworded it as, he gave himself permission to ball up his work clothes and throw them in a pile, and all his work problems went with those work clothes in the pile, and he put on his martial art uniform, and a new day started. And that's a powerful thing to learn as a lesson at age 12. Or high schoolers think everything is the most important thing, and oh my God, and blah, 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 the world is ending if I don't today.
And they know everything.
And God, they know everything. God, it's amazing what they know. Oh, what did I say to the group yesterday? Hey, guys, if you read something in a book, that's great, but if your parents lived it, shut up. Like, stop talking. They're like, what? I'm like, if your parents, like, you read about 9/11, right? I was there. don't talk about it. You're going to sound like an infant. Don't talk. But I read about. Stop talking.
Or
Stop
ask
talking.
or ask questions.
Ask good questions, right? Please don't try to talk to them about something they lived. So go ahead. Sorry.
Sort of to both of those points, there's as a parent that took a lot of focus on parenting.
What is it? Thinking about thinking.
I like thinking about.
I know.
Thinking about thinking is important. You go four down. That's when it starts getting tough. But
Inception thinking.
But the idea that there is another voice, another trusted, respected party that is saying a lot of things and reinforcing values, mindsets, beliefs, techniques that we were teaching at home was really, really valuable. That was huge. It was huge to reinforce it. And that one that you brought out, particularly important. The idea that you are not your emotions, that you can separate that.
2023. That's not what I've been told traditionally, Dave.
I know. Funny enough, newsflash. Just learned we are not our emotions, and our emotions are not everything. So
What?
I know, shocker.
There's a time and a place for that. Like I mentioned before, right?
Yes,
Like
yes.
after class, I'll vent to you all I want, and
No,
you'll
100%.
I will turn to people like, I need 45 seconds of bitch. Ready
Yeah,
to go.
right.
Okay, now shut up.
So do I.
Go to therapy. It's really good for
Right.
you. Like go like all these things. No, there's a lot of great awareness on mental health that is a lot more of a focus now than there ever has been. We just need to. We, however, have moments when we can't. I don't mean indulge in a self-gratifying kind of way, but where we can't indulge in that because the situation of life says this is not the moment. Like you can't.
Yes, and that's a huge separator. Yes.
You can't be driving down the highway and have a moment where it's like, nope, I'm going to have a full-out meltdown right now on the highway. No, you got to
Right.
be able to get yourself to the edge, pull off, and then you can go and break down however you need.
Correct.
But when people do, we get spectacular video out of it.
Yeah, and a lot of mess to clean up.
Right.
So the idea, teaching the kids here, where they have their peers and they have their situation and they have the respect of you all helping guide them. That's a huge opportunity for them to learn this thing that then we really benefit from at home because
Right.
then the kids are more aware. Like, no, I understand you're really upset. Let's work on bringing that on separating that off, looking at that upset, and then let's see how we can solve it.
Right.
Right?
And sometimes it becomes, let's solve this before you get on the mat. And you know what, I look at you right now and I see you are sad. Why are you sad? Let's talk about it. Give me 2 minutes where you're just either yelling or you're just getting it out. And I do this with my friends too. And I did this the other day. One of my friends, she was visibly like distraught.
Sure.
And it becomes that like, what's wrong? And nothing. Okay, well, you have now 5 minutes to yell at me. Like, not like yell at me, but like
Yell about your
and then
mom.
I do this with my mom, and it becomes like I'm yelling, like I'm literally yelling, and I have to pause sometimes. I'm like, I'm not yelling at you. I'm just like, I love you. You're the best.
This needs to come
but
out.
like this needs to come out, and she, like moms do. They just sit there and they're like, okay, keep going, because it's not about it's not a personal attack, right? And that's kind of like, I give you 5 minutes to yell and say whatever you want.
We all have that moment.
Get it out, and then we can move on.
And that's a
then
technique.
you can have a good class. And sometimes it's okay. You have 30 seconds to snap out of this. Put those emotions to the side. Right? Like these students came down to have a really good class, and you are going to be that person to help make their days better too.
So,
And
Good.
we'll talk about it after, right? Like,
tell me your story after class, buddy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me after class.
And that's a technique. That's like a technique. Like okay, can you take off the clothes and put them in the corner and
Yep.
put on your gi? Okay, no, that's not an option. Okay, now let's move, advance the heuristic. Now we're going to go over here. We're going to say, okay, here's you got 30 seconds. Go and punch that bag all you can,
Yep.
or go and yell in the corner, or sit down for a real quick cry and tell me whatever.
Yep.
Right? Like there's there's a heuristic and you can work your way through it, but so often we're not given this, and so we just sort of sit there and like pound our fists and scream, and it doesn't work well.
But
or take it out on
also-
others, and that's also not.
But also good leadership, knowing what each student needs, right? Like in the case of my friend,
go.
right?
Really
I know she just needs to vent, right? Like she just needs to get it all out. In the case of another friend, they like to just mentally like be by themselves, mentally take it all in, process it, and then a couple hours, day later, then they're ready to talk about it. So I think it depends on, you need to know the students, what they're going to need in that situation, and that's trial and error too, right? Like that is very much trial and error, and that's something that at 7 years old they're going to start to pick up when they start to interact with different types of people.
Sometimes they need a pat on the back. Sometimes they need a swift kick in the ass. And depending. And the same student, by the way, might need both. Maybe Monday it's the pat in the back. Sometimes Wednesday it's the come on, you can do better than this. Here's a kick in the ass. You can do better.
That was actually one of the things that that appealed to me and drew me to this dojo.
It's not all kick in the ass.
Yes, if it were exclusively so, then yeah, no, I wouldn't have gone for it.
Yep.
No, I've told you the story before, but I when I realized that, oh my God, eventually my daughter is going to be dating, and I'm I'm overprotective of like my big 250-pound buddies, I'm going to be horror for my daughter. I'm going to be the worst. I'm going to destroy our relationship. And we have a great I need to fix this. I need to fix this. Badass. If I make her a badass, then I can
sleep better at night.
Then I can logic it away and be like, nope, you go on the date. You're going to be fine because I know you can like utterly destroy this. And like, okay, good. All right, we'll do this. This is it. So I knew what I wanted. And I went around, sat through 6, 7 different classes, different locations, all around, and came over here. And one of the first things that I noted was that you, and I think it was you at the time, Paul. You gave the kids constructive criticism, and it wasn't all everybody gets a trophy. It wasn't all like it was it was criticism with love.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's
It was, and because it can't just be about my ego. That's useless. It can't just be about
it can
discipline and nothing else.
It is useless.
All right.
It can be. It is. It might not just be useless. It might actually be harmful.
Yeah. Yes.
Toxic, harmful. That's definitely in the industry.
100. There's a ton.
Yeah.
I did 3 different forums across the span of my life in the 25 years of martial arts I did prior to this.
Yep.
And they spanned the 23. They spanned the spectrum, right? And but it was your interaction with the kids coupled with the fact that there's some real life applicability to this. It's focused on staying safe, and this all ties on in because you all don't just teach, this sport, these particular techniques that are physical altercation related. They are pre and post altercation.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Avoidance and escape. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like how to safely exit a robbery.
Yep.
Right. Like, okay, here's how I'm going to put this down. Here's how I'm going to give if the person's just after a resource, here's a resource, and I'm going this way. But so that holistic view on it, and that sort of extends over into life skill and and then when you added on the additional life skills of the leadership training, that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
That was really huge.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I don't do praise well, so
Yeah.
Cool.
Take it.
No, I shall not. I will never.
Just smile and say thank
The
you.
both of you.
Thank you.
I've always thought that shit in my own head. I love jiu-jitsu because I love the act of training jiu-jitsu. I also recognized, even before I started the certification, that it was changing who I was as a person. What pushed me to go from profound introvert to being able to lead a group, which is still weird to me all these years later. That's the whole thing. A quote I came over recently was like, "You're not who you think you are. You're who they think you are." And I still think of myself as that I still think of myself as that shy little kid a lot of times. And then when other people look at me and be like, "Well, he's in charge," I'm like, "Who's behind me?" Because it's definitely not me. And that still happens to me today. The thing that pushed me was, I want other people to have this experience. I want other people to have that opportunity for transformational growth through this medium that I love. And then the responsibility back ends into it. Something you said earlier made me think about one of the lines, certainly to adult instructors and definitely to the kids. I think adults maybe get this a little bit more innately. I remember specifically you and Kyle following me around when I was teaching. And the lesson is,
It was a fun game we played.
And these are instructors, adult instructors, by the way. One of the things I tell the kids is, guys, if you teach something wrong and they learn it wrong, and I test them and I fail them, you failed them. And to watch a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old go, at the level of responsibility that puts on them at such a young age. Like, if you're going to show them how to do that, you have to show them the right way, because they will fail their test based on something. Because I was over here working with the green belts, you're over there working with the yellow belts. You have to make sure you show it the correct way, or they fail their test and they go, "Well, I was taught it this way." What's the fail point, right? And so we had adult instructors walking around to make sure they didn't teach things wrong.
I would I would usually be with like a white belt group or a yellow belt group, and I would literally hide behind the pole and like peek out and like watch the test happening, and I'm like, you know,
They do it right?
yeah, like, are they doing it? Are they doing it? And like people would be coming over and asking me questions. I'm like, no, I'm watching.
Yeah.
Like I was just so stressed out. And then of course when they earned their stripe, or when they earned their, you know, like when they passed their pretest or whatever, I got really excited for them. Like and
where else do you get that? You don't get that too many places.
No,
in life,
you don't.
right?
And I think it's
even as an adult, where do you get that?
Yeah.
and I just think it's so powerful that you know, for the kids too, right? Like they teach a technique, and then all of a sudden that kid now is a yellow belt. And they're like, well, that's super cool. I kind of helped them get there. And there's a lot of different hands, obviously, like a lot of chefs in the kitchen, but it becomes that like ownership of, this is kind of cool to watch, you know, I had a piece in their success. And, you know, it's kind of selfish, but also not, because you're also celebrating their hard work, their effort, they're willing to learn. And I think that's kind of cool. But yes, no, I would definitely hide. And then we would also follow Sensei Paul, because every so often he would change the variation.
Never happened.
And we would
That's
just
not
want to
true.
make sure that we were all on the same page. We had a bet going every we would ask.
You guys just remembered it wrong.
We would ask
never
the
happened.
same question every
It was
class.
always this way.
And it was a different ending each time. Therefore, he just changed the policy. So I created something. Anyways, I digress.
I think that I want to unpack something real quick.
Yeah.
I think that empowerment, that concept of empowerment for the kids is huge. That they took this action, and this person now has their advanced degree, their advanced belt.
Next rank, yeah.
They've moved up. Like they had a hand in that. Like that idea that their actions, their leadership, their example can have impact is huge.
Right.
But I want to circle back and unpack something real quick. You said that if that student fails, then we fail.
Yeah.
I think this is really important to then look at how then do you all treat that fail?
Right.
Right? What do you do with that? Is that then, do you banish them? Do you throw them out? Like, nope, that's it.
Right back to work, yeah.
No.
Right.
That's a learning opportunity.
Yep.
And getting into kids' heads the idea that, yes, failing can have consequence, but you can recover, and it's a learning opportunity.
Yep.
Right?
For everybody.
Like, all three of those are important, because fail does have consequence, but it's also the way that you learn, and that's really important.
But it's even learning opportunity for those in charge too, because
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
we then
absolutely.
failed because you didn't teach this correct. So it becomes like, let's all step back. And ultimately, good leadership, like they take responsibility for their actions as well. And it's not just like, well, you messed up, so you weren't paying attention to me. It was, no, it starts with me, or it starts with him, right? It starts with, and it becomes that ownership of, we can do better as a unit. I can do better teaching you, or teach you a different way, or try something a little different. And then you're adding in 4 different ways to get that one lesson.
Very Sun Tzu.
Yeah. What?
Very Sun Tzu of you.
I don't know.
Art of War.
I-
It's good.
Third grade vocabulary. Dave.
That's so not true.
Remember a Sun Tzu?
So not true.
See, I failed.
It's very smart of you.
I failed. I do actually want, you know what's funny? I actually do want to create a reading list, like a required reading list for the adults.
So good.
Some stuff that just a bunch of books that are like, not even the instructor certification, just like, at this rank, you should have read X, Y, and Z, which Allison's twitching over a little bit, but
As long as I have an Audible, we're good.
I'm sure there's an Audible for it. And by the way, I approve of Audible. I go walk on the trail and I listen to my books on tape and podcasts and all that kind of stuff. I love that stuff. I don't listen to music very much
I don't
anymore.
read good.
Says the masters in psychology, to be clear. So,
Okay, psychology is not nursing. Like, I didn't have to necessarily
no,
read.
psychology is not nursing. But
to-
you still do a lot of reading to be a
Well-
master in psychology.
Well,
Just take the compliment. Sorry. You're going to lose this
oh,
one.
sorry, I was supposed to just.
I'm not saying spell check didn't help you quite a bit along the way. I'm saying.
Grammarly actually helped me a huge bit.
Listen,
we didn't
in
have
life you learn how to apply
ChatGPT.
tools. Oh yeah.
That's a good point. Is it in the book?
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the book.
Apply tools. I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
I did read some textbooks, but not all of them.
You know, the way I learn is not the way I teach, right? I've tried to iterate over the years. It stands on the shoulder. What is it? Genius stands on the shoulders of giants, right? I have added and iterated. The base is still there, right? The 20 points of teaching. Actually, Sensei Nick and I together like updated the 20 points of teaching. We did it on purpose. There were like something like, yeah, this should be important. This is too much. We're gonna change things around because recently, I'm sure if you guys are watching, you've done any kind of leadership training, you've heard the praise sandwich, right? Praise, correct, praise. We've changed that recently. It's praise, correct, inspire, or praise, correct, encourage. I'll take either of those 2 words on the back end because oftentimes we found that secondary praise was like some bullshit throwaway, whatever. Good job, high five, nice breathing. And if you can give them some sort of relative, like use yourself example, you know what, you can get this because I used to suck at it and I figured out how to do it, right? Some sort of encouraging or inspiring role modeling. But to that end, like the leadership training is not done, right? This book gets added to, gets changed. Like I said, 5-6 years ago, we completely redid everything. And we did it because we thought we could be better.
But even that concept of if Dave doesn't do something correct and I come over and I say, well, that was wrong, right? He's just going to tune right out. He's going to be like, I don't want to hear it because I was wrong. But if I'm like, Dave, you did a really good job shaving your beard today, and I give him that praise, then he's more receptive. And
Right.
learning that at a young age to kind of like basically teach and have people be receptive to
What you're about to say.
what you're about to say, I think is a super important skill at any age in
Yeah.
theory.
What he mentioned before, having the team read the like switch.
Correct.
right?
And just that idea of the proper way to maybe give somebody feedback or the proper way to kind of help somebody learn, because they're not going to learn if they're going to just shut down because you're like, that was awful.
Right.
Right. It becomes like there's something in there that's good. And I think that's also a life lesson as far as there's always something good in a situation, right? There's always something good that you can look at and then go from there, right? Even when you're talking about teaching kids or teaching an individual, right? There's going to be always something good that they're doing, or they're just there putting effort in, right? Like they're just there and, you know, they showed up and they're energetic, and that might be the
Good-
positive.
good effort.
Good effort. Good job. Like good job existing. So
We're happy you're here.
Sometimes you need that just to open the door so that then they can hear what
Right.
you're
Correct,
going to say.
yeah.
So it's
Yep.
and
you
in
know,
little
even
bite-sized
if it's-
chunks, right?
Well,
Like-
that's one of the jokes is you get to like really advanced training. It's like, all right, guys, some of the nicety's gonna drop a little bit. Get ready for it. Like, you know,
And that alone is actually a really valuable skill. There are going to be difficult personalities that we're all going to face over our lifespan. And
you.
I'm not talking about either of you because you both outrank and kick shit out of me. So clearly, I'm talking about somebody else who's much smaller and weaker. We're gonna face these like people that are going to have a myriad of personality types. And my daughter the other day was just talking about going and meeting a boss who was just really sort of gruff and in a new job she's got, like gruff and tough and like the whole time. And she's like, oh, okay, I've seen this. I know what this is, right? And she didn't shy away or immediately assume, oh, what have I done? No, that it was just this is just this person, and okay, this is how I interact with this person because I was taught a bunch of different techniques through through life and through this training program, and this leadership program gave her tools to be able to go and handle that.
Yep.
Awesome. It's awesome. Ding.
We didn't stick to the half hour.
I don't even know how long we're on.
45 minutes.
But I think this deserves a high five.
Oh.
Good job.
To be clear, this is by far the most handsome the podcast has ever been.
Stunt doubles.
Stunt doubles, yeah. There's all kinds of inappropriate things we can say, but we will skip that for right now. As always, guys, with this stuff, we like your feedback. Have you trained in the martial arts? Was there some type of mentorship, leadership, role, opportunity, training? I said I've been to the places where, hey, you're a blue belt, go help the white belts. I don't know how to help the white belts. Yeah, but you know how to do the thing, go do the thing. And I personally, I don't like that. We don't do that as a modality. We say, hey, do you want to learn how to help the white belts? Okay, cool, come to this extra training. And it runs, our leadership training, I don't know, what is it, 15 or 20% of our kids are involved in? So that means 80% are not. It's not a requirement.
Right.
As a matter of fact, we're kind of dicks about qualifying for it. To be able to qualify to join the program at the youngest age, they have to come with a piece of paper for 8 weeks and take notes on another class. They have to show that level of commitment just to be allowed to join. And the financial compensation, it's like nothing. It's like $20 a month. It's almost nothing. It kind of just covers our costs in the program. And we put a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of energy into it. And I wish that existed in other places, both in the martial art industry, in general schooling, in school sports. I wish that something like that was more formally available and or talked about. It exists at the adult level. Some jobs will push you to leadership training. If you want to go online and sign up for Jocko Willnick's, you can. There's not a lot of programs out there for youngsters to learn that life set skill. And I can say, go read the light switch, but an 8-year-old's not going to get anything out of that book.
And that's one small piece.
By the way, and when I was 8, by the way, my dad was trying to get me to read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Napoleon Hill. I was like, no, because I was 8 or 9 or whatever I was. And I remember he would make me listen to the books on tape in his car, and I was like, oh, fuck.
Wait, that's bad? I still do that with my kids.
Oh, at whatever age I was, I wanted to listen to rap, and he was dying inside. And probably because of those little things from my dad pushed me to eventually be okay with taking this, despite the fact that I was so shy, because it was like opportunity to learn, right? Those little nuggets from when you're younger, you might reject them when they're younger, but they're floating in the back of the brain somewhere. And you pick them up. You've done a lot of extra stuff with both of the Master of Psychology. You've gone to look to extra training on purpose, whether that came from your mom's influence when you were young because she was a teacher or educators, some of that stuff in there. We've talked a lot of times about some of your parenting stuff that you received and how that's informed the way you kind of work the world. We all have some of that baked into us, our schemas. And I wish that there was something more formal for more kids. We have it here locally. Doesn't help people in the other parts of the country, unfortunately. So, anyway, thank you guys. Thank you, Dave, for jumping in today. I'm sorry. Thank you, Dave, for allowing us to drag you in today. There was some pushback. And
He was voluntold.
yeah, he was kind of voluntold. That's fair. What was it? Paul, just keep talking until you agree? Yeah, probably.
Yep.
Wore me down.
Not because I've read the light switch and gone through this important training.
Stop.
And I believe there's benefit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Listen, my whole thing, real quick, real tiny quick. We're playing with this idea. I heard a quote last week, and it's an organization runs on three things: a charismatic leader, a goal or a purpose, and something to push back against. And we're still noodling this out. But if I think something is worth it, get the fuck out of my way, because I will just go and not stop and push. And if it makes the place better or people, the individual better. I got a student now, she just started. I'm already eyeballing her and I'm already nudging her towards the leadership program because she's going to be awesome at it and it's going to be awesome for her. Like I will nudge on her and I have other people nudging her as well because I just think it'll be very good for her. She has some of those like traits that'll be awesome to enhance. The whole, but she needs a nurturing program to make it happen. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.